film in competition Under the Silver Lake, which had its world premiere last night at the Cannes Film Festival. Distributed by A24 in the United States, Under the Silver Lake will be released in France by Le Pacte. Let me introduce you first to the talents on this panel. To my left, three producers, but ladies first. She produced David Robert Mitchell's first film, The Myth of the American Sleepover. Last year, she was one of the Oscar winners when Barry Jenkins' Moonlight was voted Best Motion Pictures of 2017. Director, writer, producer, Adele Romansky. By her side, producers and partners Chris Bender and Jake Weiner. Together, they produced such films as David Cronenberg's critically acclaimed History of Violence, which premiered in Cannes in 2005, and more recently, Ariel Roman's Criminal. Their company is aptly called Good Fear Film Plus Management. To your far right, an American composer and musician, better known by his stage name. Recognized for his work as a chiptune artist, he stepped into film music composition thanks to his electronic soundtrack on a video game, Fez. David Robert Mitchell, a fan, offered him to score It Follows. This is his second collaboration with David Robert Mitchell. Ladies and gentlemen, Disasterpiece. Next to him, the editor of The Myth of the American Sleepover and of It Follows. He was nominated for Best Film Editing at the Film Independent Spirit Awards, the Fright Meter Awards, and the International Cinephile Society Award. After working with Doug Liman's Americans Made, he reunited for the third time with David Robert Mitchell to bring his Silver Lake to life in the editing room. Julio Perez. To his right, he has lit It Follows, but also Don Coscarelli's John Dies at the End, and recently, Mike Otzlek, Los Angeles. He won the Fright Meter Award for his work on It Follows, honoring the year's best horror, and won the Grand Jury Prize at the Las Vegas International Film Festival for Lake Los Angeles. He is Under the Silver Lake cinematographer. Welcome to Cannes Film Festival, Mike Giuliakis. Last but not least, a director whose films this festival always welcomed. His first, The Myth of the American Sleepover, was screened at the Critics' Week in 2010 and won that same year the Special Jury Award at the South by Southwest Festival and the Jury Special Prize at the Deauville Film Festival. 4 years later, subverting the horror genre, It Follows competed again for the Critic Week's Grand Prize and was an instant public and critic buzz far beyond the Croisette. 24 wins, including the Next Wave Award at the Austin Fantastic Fest, and 41 nominations followed too. Under the Silver Lake is his third feature film, but the first one competing for the Palme d'Or. Director-writer David Robert Mitchell, welcome back.
Thank you.
Well, my first question will be to you, David Robert Mitchell. You said that It Follows came from a recurrent nightmare, you being stalked by a predator.
Yes.
For this modern-day noir thriller, I mean, what triggered it all? I mean, what did you want to explore, and what maybe did you want for us to decode?
Well, you know, it started, my wife and I were talking, we were sort of looking up at the houses in the hills in Los Angeles, and we were sort of wondering, like, what really happens up there? And so we just had it started with a conversation between us, and you know, I was drinking an intense amount of coffee, and it all just kind of came, and sort of it was a bit of a fever dream in a way, the way the script formed. So I wrote it very quickly, and you know, I can't tell you exactly what it is. It was a combination of wanting to, you know, do sort of my version of an LA noir and a Los Angeles mystery, and then also that idea of you know, what might really be happening.
All right, questions to the floor. Who will start?
Good morning, Peter Howell from the Toronto Star in Canada. Congratulations on a very intriguing film.
Thank you.
My question's for David Robert Mitchell. I know you're probably not inclined to explain anything, But
Correct.
I did notice there was a thread of, I don't know if you call it obsession with sort of analog items as opposed to digital. The Andrew Garfield's character sort of doesn't resort to Google until the very end.
Sure.
And he doesn't get any real satisfaction from that. So could you talk a bit about that, about like Polaroids, vinyl LPs, VHS, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just tends to be a little bit more interesting. I'm not completely opposed to digital. We shot on an Alexa. I'm sorry, but yeah, I know I need a bed. All right, but I just have an affection for it. I don't know that I can necessarily explain it, but I think it's inherently a little bit more interesting on film. It tends to be than something that is always on a screen. It's just a little dull that way.
Question here.
And there's also something to be said for the feeling that you get. It's the memories connected to all these different technologies. It's what we associate with it. I could talk for a while about it, but there are many reasons, but those are a few.
Question over there.
Hi, good morning. Maria Guerra, Cadena Ser Spain Radio. I'd like to comment on the role of women in this universe. They seem to be like mothers, whores, or virgins. So what's it about? What's the hope?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's not just the women. It's the men and women in this story. Ultimately, everyone is. Even our main character is on some level essentially unknowable. There is a mystery himself. He's surrounded by many characters, which on some level almost feel like ghosts in some way. Not that they are, but just there is a. I don't know that there is a intensely deep characterization for any of the supporting characters being men and or women.
Question here, please.
Hello. Elena from Saraton TV, Uzbekistan. Question to Richard and to David Robert. At which stage did you start to collaborate in creating the dramaturgy of your music? Was it mostly starting from you or from David? How the process was? And were there any conflicts or disagreements during the process? Thanks.
We started fairly early because there was music that had to be written for pre-production. There was this song in the film "Turning Teeth," which is kind of throughout the whole film, and so we got together early on to work with a rock band to put that song together, and then from there, we were, there was some on-set things that needed to be done because there are some musical sequences that. We had to coordinate with actors, we were working pretty closely for a long time.
Yes.
Almost a year. Yeah.
Question over there.
Yeah, Igdaye, Belgian TV. I saw, of course, many tributes and references in the movie. Hitchcock, Bernard Herrmann's scores, silent movies, and so on. I would like to know. I saw the movie as a tribute to the cinema as a whole, and
yes.
It's not only a mystery novel, a mystery story, but I have the feeling you want to say it's impossible to live and to live an everyday life in LA without these references. How did you build the references to the history, to the atmosphere of the global cinema in your movie?
I'd say that for me it just it happens pretty naturally because for me, I love so many different kinds of films from so many different points in history, from so many different parts of the world that it kind of just, depending on the project and what it is, it just kind of comes out naturally. It comes from a deep love for these things. And for this particular film, it's so much about, it's about Los Angeles, and it's about the way Los Angeles is understood through the history of cinema. And also the LA noir, the mystery that is such a sort of important and genre for LA movies. I guess it just, I think ultimately it just grew from my deep love of those films. I'm going to rattle off a list here, but now I'm forgetting all the million movies that I want to actually mention. But I'm terrible at thinking of them off the top of my head, but they come to me as I'm writing.
Question here.
Matt Hoffman from Toronto. You talked about the characterization of the female characters in your film, but I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about the way how you shoot women in this film and sort of capturing the male gaze through Sam's character.
Can you be a little more specific?
Well, I think the women in the film are, the way they're shot is sexualized. They're really shot in a sexualized way, but I think that's very much on purpose. Are you trying to say something in the way you're shooting women?
Of course. I mean, it's we're directly dealing with the male because it is from this particular character's point of view. It's the way this character is seeing the world. I don't. For me, this is the point of view of Sam. It's how he is. It's his take on the world, and so I'm not really sure what else to say about it other than yes, we're embracing his the way that he experiences Los Angeles.
Question over there.
Hi, my name is Marcus, work for Swedish television. I want to know if the movie turned out as you wanted to, or did you have scenes that you couldn't take into the movie, or?
I'm very happy with the film. No, truthfully, there are probably always things where you wish you maybe had a little bit more time for something, or you would put more into it. But no, I'm very happy with it, with all of the sequences and the film as a whole. Yeah, truly.
Question here, please.
Fernando Hernandez from Filasiete from Spain. So I want to ask Michael and David, how do you develop this bright scene of the city? Because LA is a whole country, so Silver Lake, this part of the city, which images, which ideas do you take from other movies or from your personal imaginary? Thank you.
Mike?
I think, yeah, there were several references. I think, obviously, there was a plethora of movies that, we talked about and David came to the table with and discussed, and it was a kind of a long process in prep. We were lucky to have a long process in prep to kind of go over the storyboards that David created and lots of different photographs and such, and we kind of created it piece by piece that way. I guess does that make sense?
Question here.
Hi, Ella Kemp from United Kingdom. I had a question for David Robert Mitchell. So you talked about the references to the history of cinema and lots of classics as well, but there are also references to your previous films.
Yes.
And also when Andrew Garfield reads the Amazing Spider-Man comic. I was just wondering why you decided to include references like that. Thank you.
Well, the Spider-Man was in the script before. From the first draft, and it just and we were very lucky to have Andrew want to play the role, and so that was just a fun, wonderful, happy coincidence and accident. As for references to my own work. I don't know if I really can explain it so much. I just thought that it was. Without ultimately explaining things within the film, which I really would rather not do. I thought it was just very fun to pull those references, and it directly connects with some of the themes that I'm trying to get at within the film, and some of the concepts that were important to me at the time that I wrote the script. To say more, I think would be maybe giving too many things away. Yeah, and I think some of that is also connected to some of the questions that maybe you were asking as well, if that's maybe helpful. The person right next to you, yeah, yes.
Well, it's true that you never want to reveal too much about a film, especially that kind of dream almost dream stream of consciousness in the images and everything. But I'm turning really to the producers, because from script to, let's say, the final cut on all production aspects, but maybe also, there's a question maybe for all of you. I mean, how did you collaborate together? And did you share the same vision from the start? I mean, because it's such a complex and personal at the same time vision. How did you work around that? How did you collaborate, basically, on that particular film?
This was about David's vision. I mean, in terms of, for us, it was about supporting him and giving him all the tools that he needed to tell this story. And in terms of collaboration, there were many questions we had, some of which have come up today, and David answered in the same way, where the answers are in there. But I'm not going to give them to you, but they're there. So if you look hard enough, you'll find them.
I'm trying to get clues for you. You see that? I'm trying. But by the way, I mean, obviously, I mean, I think many of us, I know I do, I sometimes look for codes or look for signals. And sometimes I do follow my coyotes when I see them. I mean, do you also, all of you in different ways, when you create, when you write, when you politics, do you also have certain codes, certain things you're looking for that will tell you you are on the right track of a creation, of an idea, of a film?
I just have one quick thing. I finally understand Los Angeles after seeing this movie.
You do?
It's all clear to me now.
You really do? You found the map. You're there. Okay, just wanting to make sure. See clearly now. What about you all? I mean, do you have that in your life, in the way you perceive life, whether it's Los Angeles or wherever you live?
Oh, me?
Well, you wrote a film about decoding, so...
Well, no,
No way.
In terms of being interested in following these paths, no, I don't think I follow them the way that the characters do in this movie. Definitely not. But, I mean, something you said was the thing you said about the creation is interesting to me. I think there's some of that in writing, for sure. I mean, because it's so much about being open to ideas. It's about putting these things down and then trying to look for the patterns within the ideas that are forming, and that's ultimately how you create something. You create a script, how you create really anything, whether that be that be a screenplay, a novel, I imagine, a song, any of these things. It's ultimately we have to try to open ourselves to the ideas that it may not even be we may not completely understand, but then we try to we craft them into something that makes sense for us.
Question here, please.
Hello, this is Yanis from Greece.
Hello.
The question is to the director. There is a sense of decay and decline, I think, in the atmosphere of the city itself as the character perceives it and receives it. And I wonder if this decline and decay it echoes in a way the way you perceive the atmosphere of the city.
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, the story is not my own personal feeling, but inevitably elements of my own personality will end up in many of the characters. Truthfully, both men and women through writing it. So that's very possible. I don't know whether that is a specifically conscious feeling of my own, but I think you wouldn't be wrong to imagine that it may come from me. Yes.
And we're talking earlier about the music of the film and how you worked on it, but I'd like to know a bit more specifically, for instance, when you were actually filming, did you put some of his music, or what kind of music was maybe accompanying your characters as you were filming? Because this is a film where music, and even the characters, they love, I mean, you have the guitar, it's a film really also about music, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we weren't playing score over most. I can't think of a sequence where we did that, but Rich was very involved in very early pre-production because there were several sequences in which the music was so deeply integrated into the scene that we had to do intense planning for many months to be able to pull it off. So I don't know if anything you want to add to that.
More specifically, there's the scene with the songwriter character, and that was a very complex scene to put together on many levels. We tried to weave together like 20 different songs into a single medley, while also having the actors perform and have the whole thing feel natural. Also working with the actor who played the songwriter, is not like a concert pianist, so we had to sort of improvise how to make that scene work.
Question here.
Chris from Belgium. Mr. Mitchell, I just wondered how much you studied or were inspired by psychoanalytical dream cinema, like Black Moon from Louis Malle or Mulholland Drive from David Lynch.
Oh, well, I mean, I love the films. In terms of studying them, it's more watching and loving, along with a million other things that probably are. Ultimately, I don't know that I could give you the list of things that have inspired this film, but it's certainly not just a handful of movies, but those would be on there, but there are many more.
Did you actually watch certain films or asked your crew to watch certain films for inspirations before or during?
I don't know that we did too much, but like probably some. Oh, we asked you to.
So I mean, I was largely unfamiliar with sort of film noir type films. My background is in video games, so this is only my second feature. So at some point we were like working through kind of the sound world that we wanted to create. And David and Julio had me go home and watch. Can I say the?
Oh yeah, I don't remember. Yeah.
He had me go home and watch Citizen Kane and Vertigo, Blue Velvet, Taxi Driver, and films like this, just to kind of like get into a sort of headspace. But I think it's similar to what David said, where he said watch and love. Like there wasn't like a lot of an analysis or anything like that. It was just listen and love and watch and love and kind of deconstruct feelings.
Another question here.
David, can you tell me, please, well, it's a pity there are no actors today here with us, but it's so interesting to know how did you tune all this ensemble of actors? How did you work? What are your secrets in really exploring the acting nature of each individual?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's again a difficult one to answer. It's really an intuitive thing. It's just about trying to connect to everyone individually, and try and obviously Andrew is in every scene in this, and it's his film. He carries the film, so he and I spend a lot of time talking about the character and what we were ultimately trying to accomplish with the movie. So he and I had a lot of had many conversations, and then it was similar with the supporting cast and also with Riley. I don't really know how to answer that question. The truth is that it's you're essentially asking how do you direct, and I don't know that that's really answerable. I know I could always try. I could stumble through it and talk for an hour, but I don't know that it would really give you that information. I think every person, and any director, is essentially trying to share some element of their personality with the cast and the crew, and trying to help people get into a particular headspace, and maybe it's even their headspace. And I think that just it's a very individual thing. So I'm essentially just being myself and trying to share that And I think that's probably what I imagine what any director does, but a different director might tell you something completely the opposite, and because they are different. So that's the best way I can answer it.
Without talking really about, you're right, directing is so personal and each has their own answer to that. But I'm wondering when Andrew got the script or Riley got the script, I mean, what were they first talking to you when they first accepted to play in your movie? I'm wondering what their own questioning was, what their understanding of your take on their characters was.
Yeah, I don't remember the specifics of the first conversation I had with Andrew about it, but I know he was, he's just very excited about the story and about the character, and I think there were probably some very specific questions that I think that many people in the audience will have. The film is, in terms of, it's the genre of a noir, of a mystery. The narrative is a mystery. The main character is essentially a mystery. There is mystery built within, hidden within the fabric of the film. And so I think that our conversations were about that and sort of wondering about, and wanting to know some of these specifics, and then finding ways to, in certain places, giving some specifics, and in others, holding them back and allowing, some of those things are really for Andrew to decide, or and sometimes for any of the actors, for Riley to decide. Again, if I say anything, to say more, I think that's probably all I can reveal about it. Yes.
No, it's true. It's very much, anyway, a film. That's how I think that everybody has their own understanding and their own projection.
Yes.
In that kind of.
Some people are certain of certain things within the movie, and other people will feel the opposite way. At least that's what I've experienced so far.
But it's true that one of the things that seems, I mean, we approached that subject matter earlier, but that there seemed to be like a thematics in your film. I mean, in particular, the water element. It's so obvious. You could have chosen in LA another district than Silver Lake, and it's Boboization, which I'm totally agreeing with you, by the way. But I mean, would you have chosen other? I mean, did you also choose it because of the name, of what it means, Silver Lake?
Yes.
What did it mean to you?
No, but
what did
water.
it mean to you?
Well, yeah. I mean, I love water in movies. I think there's something incredibly beautiful about it, and it has there's so many feelings that I connect with it. I love our ability to sound design water and certain emotions that it reflects, and so it's certainly something that I put within my works. Probably not in everything that I've written, but maybe in the films that I've made. And then about the name, and I think it's all connected in that way. It's it's about certainly the name, and that particular body of water and the community around it. I mean, it's all tied in. Yeah.
And Silver Lake is changing, that's for sure.
Yeah, and this film is actually, it is probably not easy to realize, but it's specifically a period piece. It's actually supposed to be, there are some dates in it if you look carefully enough, but it's supposed to be the summer of 2011, which actually feels similar to now in some ways and very distant in others. So it is a particular moment in time, or a very particular group of people in this one spot. But at the same time, it's also a bit of it's a dark and sort of distorted fantasy of a certain place and time. And I think the journalist over here was asking me about sort of portrayal of women and the way that certain things are seen, and it is of a moment in time. It is of this particular place. And if that helps in any way, I feel like maybe I didn't answer your question, enough. But it's very tied to that moment.
Question here.
I love many scenes of the movie, but there is this sequence, the meeting with the composer, and the composer. It's very cynical and very humoristic because the composer explains that behind all the pop songs there is a kind of big brother who made everything.
Yes.
Of course, you don't want to explain everything in your movie, but what's your feeling about the production of pop culture nowadays? Do you think it's still possible to have an original voice, or everything is that there is the weight of the industry, the weight of the billboards and so on? I like the allegory, the symbolic power of this scene with the composer.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, what you say is true. It's very difficult, and it's probably harder and harder as we go for many reasons that we probably all know. But for me, it's really just posing a question. It's the idea of, do you believe in love and art, or do you believe in, money and power and comfort? And that's really the question, and that's an individual thing.
Question here.
Hello, Lisa Nesselson from France 24, French television. We're in an environment right now where security is very, very tight. So it was a lot of fun to watch an environment where security seems to be very, very lax. Characters wander into parties, they transgress crime scenes. If you want to be there, you can sort of wander in. So I was wondering if you ever worried about losing our suspension of disbelief. And also if you could talk about how you got that excellent performance out of the flying squirrel.
Yeah, sorry, I hear you first. No, I'm not worried about the. I mean, it's ultimately on some level where it's fantasy. There's an element of sort of walking through a dream. I think that's felt. So in terms of there are some things that where maybe there's an element of realism that we're aiming for, but often we're really not. The squirrel, we worked a long time to make that happen, yes.
Well, really, what also intrigued me when I was watching the film and when I'm hearing you all is how much it seems it was very essential for you to make it very much an ensemble piece with people that you could trust, that you knew from previous experiences. How important is it for you to always have almost the same collaborators around you creatively and production-wise?
Well, yeah, it's important. I mean, we're all working very closely together to try to craft this thing, and these are people that I trust and believe in, and that's essential to creating a film. There's certain things you can build upon and then try to get to another level when you have that experience together.
Well, talking about the next level, this is your first film in competition. I was there last night for the world premiere, and it felt extremely wonderful actually to see you walking in that room, young director, third time in Cannes, first time in competition. How did you live that moment?
Well, I mean, it felt great. Yeah. Yes.
That was the last question.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.